Hello and welcome to this scene interview. I'm Osian Andrew, a BFI Film Academy Young Programmer, and I'm delighted to be interviewing a filmmaker today that's made a film that falls perfectly into our theme. We're externalizing the internal in this season of Scene, and we're all about learning how young filmmakers have found their footing in the filmmaking world. I'm happy to be interviewing Ffion Pritchard today, an acclaimed director and creative artist from North Wales. We'll be discussing her latest film, Dear Heartbreak, and dissecting the filmmaking process, how the industry represents young people, and any advice that we can share. Fion's unique perspective will undoubtedly shed light on the challenges and triumphs faced by emerging filmmakers, offering insights into the dynamic landscape of the wider film industry. Prepare to be inspired by Fion's journey and her valuable contributions to the cinematic realm, especially in empowering young voices within the industry. Now, let's embark on this sure to be enlightening conversation with Ffion Pritchard. Ffion, nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so happy to be here talking to you about my film Dear Heartbreak.
I'm elated to be talking to you, honestly. Could you please share with us some of your background as a filmmaker and tell us a little bit about your film?
Yes, I'd love to. So I am kind of a visual artist by trade, I guess. I did an art foundation around 11, 12 years ago now. Um, from there, I went on to study illustration at Brighton University. Um, During my art foundation is when I discovered filmmaking, really. It was when I was inducted into Premiere Pro and things. And that's something I kept hold of throughout my degree, even though it was an illustration degree. The course in Brighton really, really broad open. So I kept experimenting with filmmaking. From there, in my career, I've done all kinds of things. I do design work. I have a community engaged practice. That's what I do most. That's what I really, really love. Um, and all the way from filmmaking to painting. And I really love storytelling. So through kind of my journey with film, I guess, is from there studying. I went on to work as a content creator for a couple of years for a Welsh language outlet called Hansh, like an online sub-branch of S4C, which was fun. I learned a lot, but I think that maybe content, short form, not quite what makes my heart sing. So I went on then to be full-time self-employed for a couple of years, continuing to do all kinds of things, but really getting my teeth into filmmaking and storytelling. And I made a film with a charity in the north that kind of was my first film by myself called Pentref. And since then, really, I've just had filmmaking as part of my artistic practice, something I really love doing, and just a medium that I really love to express myself through.
Fantastic. That sounds fantastic. It seems like you've had an illustrious career already, at such a young age. Fantastic. Thank you, Ffion. Um, Dear Heartbreak has character introspection at its core. How did you go about constructing the foundations for the narrative and Ellie's story arc?
So this film was such a flurry, I guess. So I'd been playing with visuals in the background just for fun. And the first thing I worked on was there's a scene in this film where we see Ellie sitting on a train platform from the point of view of inside the train, just playing around with the animation. And I had this idea in my head of this story of kind of going through the grieving process of a romantic relationship in a really fun way. I love puppets. So I really wanted to play. I had ideas for the medium, ideas for the story. And then a bursary came up, small bursary, scratch space bursary with a puppetry festival in Newcastle called Moving Parts, which forced me to make it, really. I had a deadline, which really, really helps. So I had a lot of work on at that time, quite a busy summer. So I was kind of forced to make this really, really quickly. The bursary I was given was to develop it to a first draft, and then it was screened to an audience. So I knew I had to get it first draft ready by that time that it was being streamed. So I wrote it in a couple of days, and I couldn't redraft it. I sent it to the voiceover actors with typos in. Um, and I couldn't overthink it, which was really, really good, I think, because I couldn't second guess myself then. And then I shot it overnight in my shed, and I had to wait until about 10 p.m. because it was summer, and I shot it through to 1 a.m. Had to edit in the day, and then it was screened to audiences. So it was really refreshing because I was forced to not second guess myself, forced to not tweak the narrative too much, and not overthink it really. So that was kind of a blessing, even though it was a stressful blessing.
How did you go about getting this film funded then?
So to that first draft proficiency, it had a small bursary, a scratch-based bursary with moving parts arts, which was £200, which I used to commission music, to pay a voiceover actor, and to buy lots of really small props. And I mean that like physically small, tiny, to go with a puppet. So that went quite quickly, but it did get the piece to that first draft. People kind of gave me nice rates in kind, knowing I wasn't working with much money. But it was money that I was really, really grateful for, but it didn't like go that far. Then after that, I worked with my close friend Dion, kind of co-producing it and co-financing it, which again was this massive blessing, because I think if had someone not told me this is worth investing in, we can make this into a real short film, I don't think I would have ever had the incentive to do it. But it is our own money that we put in there. We used that to commission extra animation, to polish up the music, because we edited down the film, so we had to change the music to go with that. Yeah, you know, to polish up the film, give it a festival run. So yeah, that small bursary started us off. We then financed it ourselves, and for a time as well, whilst I was finishing the film, I was working on a community arts residency in Tir Pawb. So I was working in their maker's space. So we had workspace in kind then to finish the editing. So through our own money, through, you know, moving parts giving us a chance with that initial bursary, and to Tir Pawb offering space in kind, is how we got the money together.
Oh, wonderful. Well, with that, what advice could you give to first-time filmmakers who are looking to get their first film funded?
So I would say to look in weird places for bursaries, for small pots of money. This was a theatre bursary, and I'm not a theatre maker, I'm not an actor, I'm not even a puppeteer. I just had a story, and I really love this festival because I really love puppetry. And I had an idea that was good to go. I'd say develop your ideas in your own time. The reason this pitch was so strong for that initial bursary was because I already had all the visuals. I'd already been playing around with things. So it really helps if you're not working from scratch when you see an opportunity come up. Those are always weaker ideas. If I see a cool opportunity and think, I really want to do this, but I have to think of an idea in a weekend, it's never as good as something that I'm already working on, already chewing over in my brain, already passionate about. So I would say that. And I would also say, as much as you possibly can, invest in yourself, because you are your own greatest resource, really. If you are able to buddy together with friends, share your skill set, and make films as much as you can in your own time, that really helps. It helps for your portfolio, but also for yourself. You know, sometimes we can get in this cycle of always applying for funding, and in the meantime, you're never really progressing with any of your ideas. You have something for a pitch, and then you abandon it. And you can end up sometimes feeling like you're dependent on that funding to be able to call yourself a filmmaker, to call yourself an artist. So I would say, as much as possible, I know that life is busy and that it's difficult, but as much as possible, develop your own ideas by yourself. It'll do wonders.
Oh, wonderful. That's fantastic advice. Thank you. All right. Tell us about someone you worked with on the production and how their skill set helped facilitate the making of the film.
What a wonderful question. So it was a small team. So I'll really, really briefly include everyone. So I wrote this and I shot this in that really, really small window, getting this to ready for moving parts. I commissioned a wonderful voiceover actor who worked with my really, really rough first draft script that had typos in it still, called Osian. Then commissioned music from my friend Rosemary Goodship, really, really talented musician. I think the score is wonderful, one of my favorite things. Then brought Ffion on board, my really good friend, really good person who always banks on young filmmakers. He's always there, ready to give them their shot and do everything he can for them. So we used that money. We commissioned two wonderful animators. My really close friend Menai Rolands, who is a genius artist. She's so talented. She can do so many things, has such a wonderful skill set. And we commissioned an artist called Ffion as well, extremely talented animator, like such a good technical skill set, who's worked a lot within Wales and nationally. I don't doubt eventually internationally, will be a really, really successful animator in her career. So that's everyone.
And they are all equally important to the making of the film, right?
And absolutely.
Do you think if you lost one of them, do you think the outcome would be completely different?
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of something fateful about it, and the way we worked on it as well. We were kind of pulling everything together apart. I had just like a drop down list that I gave to the two animators, and they just picked and chose which ones the shots they wanted, and then I took what was left over to do by myself. So it was like this really lovely collage almost experience, pulling everything together. Everyone didn't meet, it was all remote. So it was definitely, I think it would be completely different and not as good if we lost any one of them.
Well, with that, if you could make this film all over again, what would you change?
An interesting question. So I think we're always learning technical things. Um, so that's the hope. Each film that you make is more polished, more professional, and more kind of slick than the last one. Um, that being said, I think sometimes what works just works. And I think when I look at my kind of back catalogue of films, I have made more successful films, like more I've executed the vision better when I've had less to work with. And I think this is an example of that. So I like that it keeps its thriftiness, that it feels a little DIY, that it's rough around the edges. And I think if it was more refined, maybe it would lose something. So I'm going to say nothing. I wouldn't change anything.
That's fantastic. I think it really goes to show how proud you must be of a film if you feel like there is nothing that you would want to sort of go back and change. So that's fantastic to hear. Thank you, Ffion. What kind of resources would have made the making of this film more accessible for you?
An interesting question. I think time is something that a lot of I would say early career or young, but I think that it's every creative person really struggles with time because we have to make money, and it's not even a case of rewarding creative work or making money. Sometimes you do get both. Like I'm very, very lucky in my life that at the moment I have a very, very creatively fulfilled work. But there's always something that falls to the bottom of the priority list, and that is usually work that you make just for passion, just for the love of it. So I think if we were to just gift people time to work on their own ideas, that would be wonderful. Obviously, financing is a big issue. I think for me, being given even a small bursary was just such a blessing. It felt like someone giving faith in your idea. Having some money to work with really helps when you're asking people for skills. So for me, I was able to go to a voiceover actor and to a musician and say, I have something. It wasn't much, but I had something. So obviously, if I had more money to work with, it probably wouldn't change the output of the film, but I would pay everybody more fairly. Which is what we ended up doing when we went for our second draft, but using our own money. And obviously, that's not something everybody's able to do. So well, time and money always helps. Yeah, so I think those are the resources, I suppose, that help people. I think it'd be nice to, if I'm, kind of the driving force in making a film, I would want everybody to be paid fairly. That being said, I think that there is a big difference between like a corporation or a big company asking someone for their skills for free or for cheap, than for early career creatives to borrow from each other. Not even early career, just people who want to make work out of the passion of it, to borrow from each other. I would lend my skill set, and I would like to borrow, please. So yeah, but I think I would love to be in a position to be able to make films and pay everybody fairly.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ffion. I mean, we can see behind you, you are so much more than a filmmaker. Now, you're a capable self-shooter, editor, and a director. How important is it for filmmakers to have a multifaceted skill set?
I think that it is really, really important. I think the more that you can do to execute your own ideas in your own way, I guess, is wonderful. I think maybe there is something of an issue, the flip side of that sometimes in a culture like maybe where we are more rural, a lot of people are self-employed and do everything. It's very, very difficult for people who have a very refined skill. Maybe you're an amazing sound technician. And I personally make films with terrible sound. Every one of my films is just, I don't get sound. Like I'm just bad at it. So I think that can be very, very difficult in terms of employability. Everybody is like a self-employed self-shooting director, but it's something I really love. I love doing a bit of everything. Kind of this film got to tinker around with my own props, my own bits of animations, and then bring other people in for that second draft. So that's something I really love doing, and that kind of suits me. I've not made a film really in my career that has a big budget, but when I've worked with a little bit more, I feel it's difficult for me to delegate and communicate my vision sometimes because I'm so used to locking myself in my shed and doing everything myself. So I think for me, if this isn't too much of a tangent, I consider filmmaking to be something that falls into like my artistic practice, and something that I love doing just for the love of it. So in that sense, I'm able to get on with making films myself and storytell myself. That's also really nice in addition to kind of like the employability of it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ffion. Our current theme is externalizing the internal, and Dear Heartbreak fits perfectly into this season. I chose it because it successfully reflects the internal monologue of Ellie. Could you tell us how you went about understanding the character psychology and telling her story?
I love this theme. Um, it's fab. So I think for me using puppetry um was so much fun, because I got to play with this idea of what are our ideas about romance, this kind of obsession with finding like the perfect romance, and that that's the way we each tie off our story and that we're complete. So I had this idea of a man-made character, a human-made character, like a puppet, an object, with these kind of contrived ideas about romance, but also with this very earnest desire to be loved. So I really loved playing with those themes. And this film, it's quite simple in a way. The script isn't big or clever. There's things, it's a first draft script, it's just done. Like there's things that could have been expressed more clever, I guess, but I liked it simple as it was. So externalizing the internal is something that I really love doing in general with puppetry, because I work a lot in arts, health and well-being. kind of charity and third sector settings, and I do a lot of puppet work in groups, because there is, I think, that level of you're able to remove yourself, to kind of outsource all of this into a puppet, which is fun, and kind of creating this character. So I wanted to portray this character, who really wanted to find love, and that it wasn't working out for her. And I think a lot of people have, that this is like this uphill struggle, and why is it always so difficult, and how is it so simple for other people? How is it so simple for people I went to school with who are all engaged? Or so kind of I had those ideas. In one way it's kind of enforced by society and is contrived and silly, but it's very important because it's important to her. And that kind of resilience of the human spirit, always willing to be optimistic about love and to think that there's always a chance, even when you're coming up against all this difficulty and failure. So those are the ideas I was playing with, a lot of kind of contradictory ideas, I guess, this desire for love that's so sincere, and these ideas that you're not good enough by yourself. So yeah, that was what I was playing with this character, and it was a lot of fun doing it.
I think Ellie's definitely got a lot of depth to her, hasn't she?
Definitely. She's a puppet
Well,
of great depths.
wonderful. What audiences did you hope to reach with Dear Heartbreak? Were you successful?
That's an interesting question. I think sometimes, I think what I've thought of sometimes at the start of my career, and maybe a bit of a weakness in my work, you're working so hard to create it, you're working so hard to get it into festivals, you don't always curate as much as you should. So I made this, and it was going to an audience of people who liked puppetry, so it was live streamed through Moving Parts. So I kind of already knew I had that audience, people who were going to sit down on a Friday night and watch live streams of 5 or 6 first draft puppet shows. Niche, but they exist. So I think going from that, developing it into a proper short film, to start with, I threw it at everything. I threw it everywhere, and it wasn't getting the results I hoped. I had hoped for a really good festival run, but it was just rejection after rejection. After that, I decided to look a little bit more like, what are these film festivals? Where does this really belong? Which is where I found the romance film festival circuit, which was this whole subgenre of really, really wonderful, a lot of them very grassroots, film festivals, all dedicated to love and romance, which it did really, really well in. And these were all festivals that I had really good experiences in. I wasn't able to attend any in person, but really good communication. I was able to do Q&As remotely, which really, really helps. I think we all have hopes of getting our films to a really wide reach, but sometimes it feels like you submit your film, you get thumbs up, that's great, but it happens all without you, because obviously you can't just cross the world every 5 minutes for every screening. So they were really good festivals to make you feel involved. Following on from there, really, I think there was just like a switch then. After I did the love and romance festivals, it was just getting better received in all kinds of festivals, really. And then recently I screened in London as part of, I'm always bad at pronouncing this festival name, Ephemer. It's like ephemerae. So which was an experimental film festival, really good home for the DIY and the kind of homemade, which it really, really suited being there. So I think maybe I hadn't thought too much about the audience, but I found the audience through trial and error, I guess, and in the end found good festivals to screen this film.
Well, fantastic. On the back of that, what did you learn from putting Dear Heartbreak around different festivals? Has it built some of your knowledge about all the different festivals that you have around the world?
Definitely. So I think this film, It is a thrifty film. It's not a super refined, high budget film, and that is something that I like about it. But it's not for every festival. Um, so I think I submitted to loads and loads and loads of animation festivals, because a lot of them are free or cheap to submit to, which is great. But for a film like this, which is like quite crude puppetry, has bits of really beautiful animation, but they are quite short. It wasn't gonna go up against more refined animated films, because there's amazing animators making films all the time, and people making stuff on their iPad that is no less refined than a big Hollywood production with loads of money behind it, because animators are just like that. They're amazing. So I wouldn't really bother with that. I think financing can be difficult, knowing when to take the financial hit of submitting to a film festival. That is something I try and make an educated guess about now, really. But it's still trial and error. Sometimes you think this is perfect for this and it doesn't make it. Other times you're like, yeah, I'll shoot my shot. Why not? And you get it. So I think going for genre is good. Vetting your film festivals, that's really, really important. There's so much on Film Freeway. Sometimes, you'll look at a festival, it doesn't seem to have ever been any images of it, or they give out loads and loads of prizes all the time, or they charge a lot for receiving a trophy or something. Though those are some red flags that may be worth watching out for. Looking at feedback, do they provide a really good in-person experience at these festivals? Are they communicative? We've read the horror stories about people submitting to film festivals and then flying over the world and the film festivals don't exist. I'd like to think that was rare, but it is really important to do your research. Hasn't happened to me yet. So yeah, but I've had really, really good experiences submitting this film into film festivals and found some really, really good festivals that I would be absolutely privileged to work with again.
Oh, fantastic. That's great to hear that you've kind of broadened your mind a bit about all the festivals that are out there. Because there are so many, and there are certain sites, aren't there, on the internet you can kind of look at, and there are loads of different film festivals. So it's great to know that you can do that research. And it's definitely worth emphasizing that people do look to do their research and ensure that those film festivals do benefit them and will represent them as well. Absolutely. All right, then. Well, look, you've made films in the Welsh language before. If you made Dear Heartbreak in any other language, do you think it would be the same, or do you think the film would have a different outcome?
I've been really, really interested in this. So I would really like to translate this. Really, I don't think it would be that hard. The most difficult thing would be translating the graphics, because a lot of them are burnt in and things. That would be time consuming. The voiceover could be done quite easily. And I'd be really, really interested in that, seeing if that changes like the flavor of it. Because the way I write is very different, I guess, in both languages, and I've not written that much fiction through Welsh. So that's something that I would really like to do, because I think this film would be cool in the Welsh language, a bit different. Um, but I'd be interested to hear how it sounds in other languages and whether that does change the flavor. That's an interesting question. I'd love to. I'll definitely have it available in Welsh someday. I think that would be cool.
That would be fantastic, and I hope you can share that with us as well, so we can all see it. That would be amazing. All right then. Well, we're getting towards the end of our fantastic discussion. I really don't want it to end at all. But I've got two more questions for you. First one: what advice could you give to young filmmakers who are looking to get their films seen?
This is such an interesting question, because we're in kind of an age of things being seen all of the time. So it can be difficult balance of what you keep to yourself and what you want to share. Obviously, the obvious answer is the internet. It's right there, social media, and what we have now that I guess didn't have when I was young. Young is TikTok. I'm not a TikTok user. I'm not such a big fan, but if you want huge organic reach, it is like nothing else. YouTube never did this for young filmmakers. Instagram never did. You have to really battle to get things seen through those channels, even Vimeo. But like things like TikTok, it's so easy, and you do get such wide reach. But I think for me, I didn't want to just put this up, make it freely available. I wanted it to be seen in festivals. I wanted it to be seen in cinemas. So for me, it was the film festival circuit. But it is tough, and there is a lot of rejection. Sometimes the financial hit, that's tough to deal with. But there's loads and loads of festivals that are free or cheap to submit to, especially genre film festivals, which as I've previously mentioned, were a complete godsend for this film when I found romance films. And they were very cheap. I think the most that I spent submitting to one was about £15, which is, for a film festival, quite cheap. Get in early, as early as you can submit, the cheaper it's going to be. And I guess be selective, but also take that chance on yourself. But also building relationships with your local cinema. I'm lucky here. My friend Ffion, who I previously mentioned, is kind of this. He's a custodian for local cinema, really. So if I have an idea of something I'd like to program, I can go to him. I know that you have the same down in Cardiff. You're very lucky because you have Tom. So that has been something that's really great for me, building relationships with local galleries, exhibit things, see who is out there who will take that chance on you. And there is a lot of people, a lot of really good people who are willing to give early career filmmakers a shot at making something wonderful.
Well, fantastic. Well, one more question for you then, Ffion. Do you have further plans for Dear Heartbreak or any future filmmaking endeavors?
Yes. So I would love to see this in Welsh eventually. I think I can be really bad for when I finish the film. I want to just sign off on it and not think about it again. But I think a Welsh version of it would be lovely. So I'd like to see that be done. I do have some really nice filmmaking projects on the horizon that I'm really excited about, and kind of those weaving in of painting and filmmaking, and documentary. I have some really good creative projects that I'm being asked to work on, which I'm really, really grateful for. I've been saying this for months, but I'm going to say it again. A couple of friends of mine were trying to get together to start what we call our zero budget film club, where we basically experiment with filmmaking and making films with no money. Because we're working with no money, that's why we keep talking about it and not doing it. But we are going to do it, and it is going to be wonderful. So yeah, I guess that's what's on my filmmaking plate at the moment.
So lots of different things, a huge variety. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, Ffion. And no, seriously, thank you for partaking in this interview. And thank you all for watching as well. I think it's time to wrap up this fantastic conversation. If you can please do watch Dear Heartbreak and look up all the wonderful work Ffion is up to through her social media channels. And join us at the same time next week, where fellow BFI Film Academy young programmer Joanna McClurg will be interviewing Tom Hardiman about their film Pitch Black Panacea. Also, BFI Future Film Festival submissions is open for filmmakers right now of short films aged 16 to 25 under 10 minutes. So if you can, please submit. It's a fantastic film festival to be a part of, and we'd love to see your films. So yeah, thank you once again to Ffion Pritchard.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to have this opportunity to speak with you.
And a big thank you from me. Until next time, goodbye.